The Light of Charles Bukowski by Andrew Blaisedll. Nirvana, Charles Bukowski, published 2006. Not much chance, completely cut loose from purpose. He was a young man riding a bus through North Carolina on the way to somewhere. I sat next to Charles. We were both young, out of time, out of money. He was from the coast via the Weimar and Baltimore, and that was the extent of it. I was from somewhere else, and that was the extent of that. I don't remember where we were going. Somewhere northeast, possibly New York with its magnetic drag line for addicts and artists. But it could have been Providence for all I remember. We weren't close. No one got close to Charles. He was an enigma wrapped in a Spam and Wonder Bread sandwich full of strange tastes, unhealthy, and slightly toxic. He was constantly writing or drinking. It was hard to get a word in edgewise over the din of the whiskey or pencil on notebook paper. The real din was the constant war between his ears, or it could have been the war between my ears. Charles was focused. Me, not so much. I was full of dread and unnameable fears. I eventually faced those demons, but at that time, I was the nervous hare with the crosshairs lined up with my left eye. My hand fell between my legs, and I felt the paper bag there. Forgotten, I twisted the cap and took a 2-shot gulp. "That's really good." I must have said it out loud, because Charles grunted. I offered him the bag, and he grunted again. I knew this was a combination retort, meaning no to the booze and "you're bothering me." The writing continued. And it began to snow, and the bus stopped at a little cafe in the hills. I could see it. The snow, I could see it down a dark corridor that separated the seats and out the front window of the bus. Little stars moving through the light of the headlamps. Far in the distance, I could see streetlights. It was some little bumfuck crossroads in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, actually in the middle of Appalachia, which was close enough. The passengers were restless, and I had the feeling that up ahead there was food and stretching relief from the miles of hills behind us. The pitch from the bus changed, downshifting the big diesel engine, rattling the loose plates between the windows. As we slowed, the interior lights came on, casting a gray filter haze through the cigarette smoke, a ribbon of which curled up from one between Charles's lips. He grunted again. "I'll have a swig now," is what the grunt meant. A shot before dinner. I passed him the bag and stood as the bus pulled into the gravel lot. I was weary, tired of the travel, tired of the noise and grunts, tired of the smokes, tired of the people and their smells, onions and gas. I was tired of the lonely monotony of traveling, the stains and the bovine waiting and waiting. I was tired of my own failings, the incessant little faults in my behavior and my thoughts. Bone-tired of constantly looking over my shoulder for ghosts, real or imagined. I couldn't remember the last time we had seen a real bed. It didn't seem to bother Charles. "Let's go eat," I said. He grunted again, meaning in a sec. I left him there to furiously make 100 little notations of the thought he would forget once he snapped the notebook closed. And the passengers entered. He sat at the counter with the others. I waited behind a huge woman to exit the bus. I remember my grandfather describing to me the latest in a long line of housekeepers. "She's as big as a house!" I laughed in my head, making sure these thoughts were not audible. As we made our way down the stairs, I felt Charles behind me, wrapping himself tighter in the thin trench coat. Charles was fascinated by what little he could get away with while traveling across the miles of America. The trench coat was an all-purpose garment, great at keeping the hot sun off and just enough for those winter snow-driven nights, just wrapped tighter. The trench coat could also be used as a suitcase to carry all sorts of useful things. The notebook and pencils in one pocket, adding the wallet with a frayed driver's license tucked inside, smokes, and now the pint stashed deep within the recesses of one of the larger outside pockets. I also know that there were other items, an extra t-shirt, socks, the knife, and a notebook. He always had the knife. The mountain wind hit us as we hurried to the diner. The 6 or so of us crowded in the doorway and made our way to the counter. The warmth, not just at the temperature, it was the humanness. The smell of food, good food. The too bright, gotta get used to this light fluorescence, the ubiquitous fuchsia formica and chrome decor, red vinyl stool seats, and the come on in and have a seat, welcome. It was like we were being invited into Mama's threadbare but tidy home. This feeling, this intoxication of the senses was grand in that, just for a moment, the hole within me was full. We followed the road down to the end. We both wanted peace except for our thoughts. The waitress came down her aisle, doling out menus in good cheer. He ordered, and the food arrived. The meal was particularly good, and the coffee. We took a look at the prices in our accounts. Enough for bacon, eggs, grits, and coffee. Debbie, from her name tag, had her system. Chat 'em up, take an order, make suggestions, her personal favorites, chat some more, and deliver the bill to the cook through the window. Slipped in the next available slot on the order wheel. Then on to the next. It took a bit for her to get down to us, which was all right with Charles. He had a smoke and another swig, found his notebook and pencil, and began scratching inside again. The waitress was unlike the women he had known. She was unaffected. There was a natural humor which came from her. Hi, boys. That's the way she said it. She made it sound fun and familiar, a bit flirty, but I knew we weren't anyone she wanted to flirt with. She made us feel welcome at home. Hello, I said in my most professorial way. It crossed people up, this schooled tone coming from a rat. She looked at me, then abruptly looked at Charles. He cupped his smoke and looked up at her. Time stood still, all sound muffled. No clinks of plates and spoons or laughter broke through them, staring at each other. The moment like no other. I know they both felt it. I felt it. The gravel came from somewhere deep inside Charles. 2 scrambled, grits, bacon and coffee, please. He did not look away or blink. He could do this, project these feelings from himself, tenderness and passion. Holding her eyes like this was a way of telling her this was the way he would hold her breasts, with both hands like flowers, beautiful, soft creations to be cherished. He knew what he was doing, and she knew what he was doing. Yet her pencil hovered just above the pad. I love the same, I said, and that seemed to break the spell. She jotted down her order without turning away or looking down. You want to stay for a bit? She asked Charles. I was startled by her directness. Charles was not. Let me think on it, he said. She smiled some mystical smile. It started inside, just under our ribs. The warm stab radiating outward, filling our chests and necks and guts. Okay, don't go away, I'll be back, she said. We sat there stunned, or maybe I sat stunned. Charles was recording every detail and many more that were left out. Wow, I said. Pretty. I wasn't sure what he meant. She came back with the coffee. The coffee was weak, but she gave it an earthy quality with her touch, like a quiet mist through the trees and a smell only we could smell. The cook's bell dinged and the scene shifted back to a new reality, kind of the same but much different. our plates came, and off we went to another world of tastes. Hot sauce on the grits and the eggs, and the perfect bacon like fried butter. The eating didn't take long, and I was up on my way to the washroom. The fry cook said crazy things. The dishwasher in the back laughed. A good, clean, pleasant laugh. Through the kitchen, through the steam of the dishwasher's table into the bathroom with sinks and toilets, I could hear the cook ribbing the dishwasher, Debbie, and some of the other patrons. Real laughter. Sounded like he was a hunter, too, telling tales of the one that got away, the same story 1,000 times with a full belly laugh of a man who was comfortable with himself. He seemed to know his world, its size and contours, each color. His was a mirthful, bright yellow, self full of light and humor. I didn't have very many opportunities to wash up, but now I could. I had it down to a science. 3 minutes flat. Coat and shirt come off, wet hair in pits, soap up and the cracks down below. Rinse. If there was no towel or paper, then my shirt for drying. Combed the hair and I felt better. I eased out and made my way back to the leather stool next to Charles. The young man watched the snow through the windows. He wanted to stay in that cafe forever. I lit a smoke and felt snug, well cared for. Not 20 minutes from the inside of the bus and the inside of my funk. Life was good here and now. I looked at Charles and he saw what I saw. He felt what I felt. This was some sort of heaven and some sort of test. We could, you know, I said. Could what? He played the pause. I let him. And never leave. Another long pause. You know, I feel it. Am I being called for something? I turned and stared out the window. The snow was swirling and the tops of the cars were catching enough to be dusted all white. I thought I could just hear the muffled snow falling, the perfect quiet and the wind. The curious feeling swam through him that everything was beautiful there, that it would always stay beautiful there. So, what do you think? Debbie had appeared and I was tearing the carbon of our bill, placing it face down on the counter. She looked directly at Charles as directly as she could. She wanted him to stay. She could see him through the derelict's clothes, the acidic smell of oversmoked, overboozed, and underwashed. She saw the heart of a titan. She could be Lapita's wife, holding stillness in the world of his words. She could see herself as he stopped there, aging with the power of his craft. This was the point. The earth would tilt just enough to change both of their lives forever, careening on towards some unknown fate. More of the same for her, so much less of the same for him. He saw her there, the imperfect beauty in her eyes, one larger than the other, blue-gray. He could feel his cheek pressed against her bare, warm belly, soothing and firm. He could feel her leg where it knelt her crease. She shuddered in response. She would be his muse for as long as it lasted. We all heard the big diesel turn over out on the snow-covered gravel. The spell was broken. The fantasy swept up like so many sand paintings, exquisite and pure for its allotted time, then no more. Then the bus driver told the passengers that it was time to board. The young man thought, I'll just sit here. I'll just stay here. In came the driver, wisps of steam and dusted with snow. 10 minutes, folks, 10 minutes, he announced. I exhaled for a long time. The scene swirled around me. The past came rushing up, faces and smells of smokes and bars. In my mind, we were still in Santa Monica, the latest dive, the one we had not been kicked out of yet. dark inside with daggers of bright sunlight forcing their way in through the slits of blinds and the posters glued to the small diamond-shaped window in the door. We sat at the bar along with one other patron who was passed out, head down on the beer-soaked wood. Cigarettes and shots of cheap beer to guide us. We had been talking of this and that, slurring and over-enunciating, as we do when we want to make an important point. Now the silence descended, punctuated by the unmistakable sound of glass bottoms hitting the bar top. A rap more than a thud. Joe, the barkeep, was out of sight, bored by our antics and drunker reminiscences. The telephone behind the bar cut through, a sharp letter opener in the ear. "Joe!" Charles yelled. "Phone!" Third ring. "It's for me," he said with conviction or bravado. I couldn't figure out which. Fourth ring. When Joe didn't appear, Charles reached over the bar to retrieve the phone. He fell forward over the inside edge of the bar and landed on the floor, cursing as he went down. He staggered up, unscathed, and picked up the handset. "What do you want?" he yelled into the phone. With the unused hand, he reached for the whiskey and poured around with deft precision. I applauded the acrobatic tricks. "Who is it?" I slurred. There was a longish pause while he listened. "Wait, what? You what?" "Oh, well, that's me," he said, instantly coherent. "Okay, and the money?" he continued. He looked at me with a wrinkled grin, gave me a thumbs up. He acted like the good fortune that follows some drunks is of his own doing. "At the hotel?" "Okay. Tomorrow." "Okay." He hung up. "Joe!" he bellowed. Good tidings. "Rounds on me!" He downed the poured shots and poured us another. "My boy," he said, "we are off on an adventure." "Where to?" I asked. The next day, we waited in our Fleabag lobby, nursing the morning aches with stale beer. Charles was getting a travel advance to show up at a conference in 2 weeks. There would be plenty for air tickets, but Charles wanted to see America, so bus it was. We left that afternoon. A moment had passed. Charles. Debbie. Hanging on the question. "Maybe I'll come back through here," Charles said. "We can visit." I wanted to stay. Tucked away in this mountain town, warm with this woman, with these people. I'd watch the snow and watch the slow pace of the town and think. On the counter, he had stacked the loose coins on the few bills we had left. She frowned, disappointed. Not about the money. It was of her own thoughts of what the future would be with this man in her bed, in her life, entwined with him as a moment of happiness. But then he rose and followed the others into the bus. He found his seat and looked at the cafe through the bus window. "All aboard!" boomed the driver. The travelers had already been making their way to the door for the dash to the bus. The driver opened it up and cold entered our thoughts. Charles was standing, backing up a step to give himself distance to take in the view. Debbie, the Countess, stretching away towards the line of people, giving himself distance from Debbie. Having made a decision, not wanting to back out. I stood up and made my way to the door, out into the freezing air and onto the bus, down to our seats, settling into the aisle seats as was our custom, me to protect Charles from the unwanted and uninvited. I saw the unvarnished future now with Charles staying here. Good for a bit, fun, the new, then not, then onward. For half a second, I thought Charles had changed his mind, and through my reverie, I blessed this union and wished for many happy days stretching well into the spring. The door heaved closed with a thud, and Charles was standing over me. Then the bus moved, off, down a curve,
straight forward. It was still snowing. In an hour or so, or as we moved down the hills, it would slowly turn to rain as the sound of it sharpened to a thwack, thwack against the windows. He heard the other passengers speaking of other things, or they were reading, or attempting to sleep. They had not noticed the magic. Yes! Magic. Strange words, sleight of hand with a dash of the divine. There is always magic at the crossroads. The moments we are aware of, the moments we later become aware of. Regrets and the fading of other paths coming in and out of focus. I took a long pull from the bottle, closed my eyes, and closed my mind to the others on the bus. I felt Charles next to me, swaying with the curves in the road. He was busy with his words, beautiful words of the savage and the magic. The young man put his head to one side, closed his eyes, pretended to sleep. There was nothing else to do, just to listen to the sound of the engine, the sound of the tires in the snow.